guys, man, Microsoft is falling down.
Microsoft just keeps losing.
Bill Gates is in absolute panic as Dell exposed a brutal truth Microsoft can no longer hide. The numbers rip apart the illusion that Windows 11 is the inevitable future, revealing an adoption slowdown that feels more like a revolt than a delay. Behind the polished AI promises and billion-dollar headlines, the biggest Windows 11 lie is bleeding into the open.
Because Windows, the operating system, is in such a bad state, I think it has an impact on how we should view all of this hardware to begin with.
Dell revealed something Microsoft would rather keep quiet. Windows 11 adoption is trailing Windows 10 by 10 to 12 points at the same stage in its life cycle. That is not a minor delay caused by cautious customers. That is a structural slowdown. And when a product that was supposed to be inevitable starts falling behind its predecessor, you are not looking at hesitation. You are looking at rejection.
Windows 11 looks shiny on the surface.
Windows 11 is currently at 31% adoption, down from 35% just 3 months earlier. Adoption is not climbing toward dominance. It is sliding backward. Meanwhile, Microsoft keeps celebrating record AI growth and talking about Copilot transforming everything. But if the core operating system is losing momentum, the foundation under all that AI hype starts to crack.
Microsoft was chasing Apple's App Store revenue and then forgot what made Windows powerful in the first place: familiarity. They stopped solving problems and started chasing trends.
The most brutal number in this entire story is 400 million. That is how many people are still running Windows 10, even though support officially ended on October 14, 2024. They understand security updates are over. They know vulnerabilities will not be patched, yet they are choosing to stay. When hundreds of millions prefer unsupported software over your new product, that is not laziness. That is defiance.
Because they came so abstracted from the money with this latest AI boom. And that is, you cannot spend your way to profitability if nobody is buying the product.
Dell's COO admitted the Windows 11 transition is incomplete and behind the previous generation. Then came the second shock. Around 500 million PCs do not meet Windows 11 requirements. 500 million machines locked out. This is not a niche compatibility glitch. This is a wall built across the ecosystem.
507-4109 rolls right off the tongue. That's the January 2026 update that broke everything, and it's not an outlier. It's just this month's entry in what was already a catastrophic 2025.
At the same time, Dell reported $27 billion in quarterly revenue and celebrated explosive AI server demand. Data centers are expanding. Enterprise AI hardware is flying off shelves. But consumer PC sales are described as roughly flat. In the middle of what was supposed to be a forced upgrade wave, people are simply not showing up to buy. The TPM 2.0 requirement lit the fire. Microsoft required a specific security chip that was not present on millions of older systems. Internal data indicated that roughly 52% of Windows 10 devices could not officially upgrade. Perfectly capable computers from 2017 and 2018 were suddenly labeled outdated. Not because they failed performance tests, but because they lacked a specific hardware feature.
What was Microsoft's strategy here? Fix Copilot's reputation by telling their most online users exactly which words they aren't allowed to say?
Users quickly discovered ways to bypass the restriction. Microsoft patched the bypass. More workarounds appeared. They were patched again. The situation felt less like protection and more like control. When hardware can technically run the software but is blocked anyway, people start asking hard questions about motive.
And get this, their burn rate is real bad too. How much did they spend on AI infrastructure in just a single quarter? $37.5 billion on AI infrastructure. That's up 66%. In terms of a year-over-year quarterly increase.
The PC market had slowed for years because performance improvements were incremental. People were keeping their systems longer. A strict hardware requirement creates urgency where none existed. Intel, AMD, Dell, and HP all benefit from hardware refresh cycles. Yet, even with that pressure, Dell projects flat PC sales. The push did not create demand, it created resistance. Then came the Microsoft account requirement. Windows 11 Home demands an online account during setup. An internet connection is mandatory. The easy local account path is gone for most users. A personal computer now requires a corporate login to function. For many people who crossed a psychological line,
They are putting the cart before the horse. They are prioritizing internal AI, Copilot, and their OpenAI offerings instead of selling Azure to customers, which at this point, it's a no-brainer.
the operating system also became a channel into subscriptions. OneDrive syncing by default, Microsoft 365 prompts, Edge integration, cloud features embedded everywhere. Windows began to feel less like a product purchased with hardware and more like an entry point into recurring payments. That shift changed how users viewed ownership.
Spending more than entire Fortune 500 companies are worth just on infrastructure to build out their data centers, which creates cloud offerings that they can sell through Azure. And they're saying they can't keep up with demand.
Microsoft's AI investment added another layer of tension. The company poured about $13 billion into OpenAI and integrated Copilot across Word, Excel, Outlook, and Windows itself. At the same time, Microsoft warned users not to rely on Copilot in Excel for critical accuracy because it can hallucinate. Embedding AI deeply while admitting it cannot always be trusted created unease. Recall intensified the backlash. The feature captured screenshots of user activity to create searchable timelines. Security researchers flagged potential risks. Privacy advocates reacted sharply. Microsoft paused the rollout and later reintroduced it with stronger protections, but suspicion lingered. Once users feel monitored, reassurance does not immediately restore confidence.
And then you have their cloud wing, Azure, their cloud services, the services that all of the internet runs on, either that, Google Cloud Platform, or Amazon Web Services. And Azure's growth is even down. It dropped from 40% to 39%.
Performance concerns compounded everything. Independent benchmarks showed Windows 11 underperforming Windows 10 in several scenarios. Gamers reported frame rate drops between 5 and 12%. Professionals noticed heavier background activity. Telemetry, AI services, and syncing processes consumed system resources quietly. Many users began to feel their machines were optimized for Microsoft's ecosystem rather than their own productivity. As frustration grew, alternatives gained ground. Linux desktop usage reportedly increased from 3.2% to 4.8% within 6 months. Mac enterprise growth rose 47% year over year. Chromebook shipments to businesses climbed 89%. These numbers may not dethrone Windows overnight, but they reflect meaningful migration. The emotional shift may be the most significant factor. In the months before Windows 10 support ended, upgrade prompts became relentless. Reminders appeared repeatedly. The message was urgent and constant. For some users, it felt less like helpful guidance and more like pressure. Software is supposed to empower its owner. When it repeatedly insists that the owner comply or risk insecurity, the dynamic changes. Control becomes visible. Ownership feels diluted. That psychological change cannot be undone by feature updates.
Nothing is making sense anymore. Microsoft just beat their estimates on their quarterly earnings, but also lost $375 billion in market cap on the same day. So they reported record revenue and then lost 10% of their value immediately afterwards.
Bill Gates does not run Microsoft anymore, yet his name resurfaces whenever Windows stumbles. Investors hear about AI dominance and cloud expansion. Consumers experience performance complaints and forced transitions. Two narratives exist at the same time. One celebrates growth, the other questions direction.
They're just hucking money at these data centers, and they're not getting Azure growth out of it. These data centers are where the cloud is. And so them saying they can't meet demand, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Microsoft plans to spend around $80 billion on AI infrastructure, positioning itself at the center of the next technological wave. Cloud revenue remains strong. Enterprise contracts continue. But the traditional Windows replacement cycle appears uncertain. That is where the vulnerability lies. Dell illustrates the paradox clearly. AI servers are in enormous demand. Corporate clients are investing heavily in data centers, yet consumer PC upgrades are stagnant. The excitement surrounds back-end infrastructure, not personal desktops. If new PC adoption slows, Windows' default presence gradually erodes. Windows once commanded 80 to 90% market share and defined personal computing. It was the automatic choice. Today, analysts openly discuss what happens if that share slips closer to 60% over time. Linux and Mac combined are no longer trivial forces. Younger users move fluidly between platforms and rely more on web-based tools.
And the silent part that Microsoft won't say, you're not getting better software, you're getting worse QA.
The assumption that Windows 11 is unavoidable is being challenged. Dell's data shows hesitation at scale. 400 million users remaining on unsupported software is extraordinary behavior. It signals distrust rather than ignorance. AI announcements sound powerful in earnings calls. Adoption percentages reveal something more fragile. Technology can be advanced and still unwanted. Innovation can be impressive and still feel imposed. When strategy overlooks sentiment, numbers eventually expose it. Microsoft believed the future could be accelerated through tighter requirements and deeper integration. Dell's figures suggest the response has been slower and more resistant than expected. The future is not rejecting progress, it is rejecting coercion. Hundreds of millions of users are not shouting, they are simply staying put. That quiet decision speaks louder than marketing campaigns or keynote speeches. Microsoft thought it could force the future. Dell's numbers suggest the future is pushing back.